There's this great intellectual divide. There are people who are thinkers, there are people who are feelers. So getting into squabbles on social media, the back and forth of comments, an utter waste of time. You got better things to do with your brain. Being critical, on the other hand, means avoiding acquiring false beliefs. Not only that, but looking for your current beliefs and seeing if any false beliefs have gotten in past your guard. A feeler can't do that. How come? Because it came from his heart and gut, and heart and gut are incapable of reasoning. Well, thanks for the introduction, and I'm going to have to start by telling you that I've abandoned my theme of Stoicism, and let me explain why. So when I was in my 50s, that was a while back, I had what was apparently a low-grade midlife crisis, and I decided I wanted to become a Zen Buddhist. And I thought I could do a twofer, what in Ohio we call a twofer, that's two for the price of one. I could not only do the research for becoming a Zen Buddhist, but I could get a publication out of it. And that publication became the book On Desire, Why We Want What We Want. But in the process of doing that, I encountered Stoicism. I had encountered it in logic class because the Stoics invented propositional logic. That's the logic of and, or, and if, then, that's used in computer programming. So you could say that the Stoics invented the computer. That's a bit of a stretch, though, so we won't go that far. But I hadn't been exposed to their other philosophies, because they have beautiful insights into human psychology, how to cope with the setbacks that life presents us. But I was told, I was a philosophy major, and I was told, well, that's not what philosophers should be interested in. And I felt so robbed because the Stoic techniques are so wonderful. They can be used in daily life, they're very applicable. And I think I was asked to come here to talk about that, and I could. But listening to the first morning of these talks, I decided I needed to do something else. So let me describe my own situation here. I'm still a practicing Stoic. I'm no longer writing about Stoicism or researching it because my interests have moved on. In part, I'm an intellectual fire starter. I like to go find things that people, I think, need to know about and then spread the word. And so I did that with Stoicism, and I wrote the book Guide to the Good Life, which is my best-selling book of the books I've done. It's been translated into 24 different languages, 25 if you count the pirated Farsi translation. And right now, when I wrote that, there were maybe 5 books written for general audiences on Stoicism. And I thought, I'm going to sell this. I'm going to try to sell this, but no one's going to read it. Maybe 6 relatives who read it out of a sense of just, he's going to ask, and we better say that we read it. But it turned out to do quite well. Now the market for Stoicism is saturated. The books are coming out at a rate of 1 a day. That's if you look at Amazon and you look for publication date this year, the word Stoicism in the title. So the market is absolutely saturated. And I've been told also that AI is responsible for a lot of the books that are coming out. So my interests have moved on. And now what I'm pushing is what I call open-minded critical thinking. And I'm going to talk about that today because that ties in very nicely with the theme of free speech. What I want to do is teach people to think more and better. And I'm going to explain to you what that is today, instead of telling you about Stoicism. If you want to know about Stoicism, read my books, listen to my stuff. I've got a website, William B as in boy, William B Irvine, and it's got more than you need to know. And if you're still kind of irritated that I'm not talking about Stoicism, get in touch with me, and I'll make it right, okay? So I've gone on to talk about this notion of thinking more and better, and I've written a book about it that will be coming out in January. Oxford University Press had agreed to publish it. And let me just tell you, give you the background of that. There's this great intellectual divide. There are people who are thinkers. There are people who are feelers. So feelers are ruled by their heart and gut. Okay? So I'm speaking very metaphorically here. They feel their way to conclusions. Thinkers are led by their head. They think, they reason their way to conclusions. You know some of each, okay? I'm sure you know feelers. You've encountered them. If you go online in a chat kind of forum, it's full of them. It's full of them. Now, so you can think about this being, it's not, why would somebody feel their way to conclusions? Well, one reason is thinking is difficult. Do you know your brain, which is 2% of your body mass, uses 20% of your body's energy? So it's power hungry. You know, and you look at the AI, and its use, you know, they're now reactivating nuclear reactors, power plants in order to power AI's power needs. Your brain's the same way in your body. Now, the interesting thing about thinking, think about the comparison with physical exercise. Exercise is good for you, but you got to exercise to do it. You can't get someone else to exercise on your behalf. You got to go out and do it for yourself. Now, that's different than thinking, because you can get someone else to think on your behalf. You can outsource your thinking. You can find a thought surrogate. There are people who are happy to do that for you, okay? And they'll do it for free. And they'll try to do it even if you don't want it done. And they're very dangerous people, because a lot of them are taking advantage of you. So the split between thinkers and feelers, it's not binary. It's not one or the other, because it's like a continuum, a spectrum, an intellectual spectrum. At one end, you could put pure feelers, right? These are people who can only feel. At the other end, pure thinkers, people who can only think. There are pure feelers. You used to be one, okay? When you were an infant, you know? All you could do is feel and respond to what you're feeling. There are no pure thinkers, and that's because we humans are hybrid creatures. We were late to develop a prefrontal cortex. And when it came, finally, and developed, it didn't replace our emotions. It snuggled down beside them. So we are hybrid creatures. And so when I was trying to sell this book, a whole bunch of people said, well, you're saying we should all just overcome our emotions. And my answer is no, because we can't overcome our emotions. They're built right into us. And they don't fight fair. What do? They engage in chemical warfare, right? When we're trying to think our way through something, oh, here comes a bunch of hormones. Okay, how many of you have ever fallen in love? What the hell was that about, right? You had your life all planned out. You know, you don't wake up in the morning and look at your calendar book and say, oh, it says fall in love. That's what I'm going to do today. You just discover that it's happened. And when it happens, it turns your life upside down. So my current project, the fire I'm trying to start, is to pull people toward the thinker end of the political spectrum. get people to think more and better. And I've come up with the notion of thinker with a capital T. Okay, I'm trying to turn it into a thing. So what's a thinker? That's somebody who habitually and consciously engages in open-minded critical thinking. Open-minded, you're going to be open to new ideas. You're going to be open to the possibility that you're mistaken about something. You're going to be open to the possibility that the person you're talking to knows the truth and you don't. You're going to be open to the possibility that you're overly confident of some belief. You're going to be open to the possibility that you have some blind spot in your beliefs, that there's something, it happens. There'll be times when somebody's trying to tell you about something, you don't want to hear about it. How come? Because if you knew more about it, you'd have to think it through, and you don't want to think, and the conclusions you drew might make you have to change what you're doing in your life. So being critical, on the other hand, means avoiding acquiring false beliefs. Not only that, but looking for your current beliefs and seeing if any false beliefs have gotten in past your guard, and then trying to eradicate those false beliefs. So there's a tension between those two things, right? Being open-minded, you're saying, I need new beliefs. Being critical means I got to block false beliefs, and any of those I find inside me, I got to actively look for them. And if I find them inside me, then I have to eradicate them. The goal is mind optimization. And what's mind optimization? That means you fill your head to the extent possible with true beliefs. Now, you could go on a whole side trip here. Well, who decides what's true? Who knows that? Truth is correspondence to reality. There is this thing called reality. It's out there. And it's a bitch, okay? It doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care what you feel. It's just going to grind away. Well, what if we're actually in a computer and, it's arranging what we do? Then that's our reality. And we have to deal with that. So you want to stay grounded in reality, and you do that by optimizing your mind. So these thinkers, these people who habitually engage in open-minded critical thinking, will have certain characteristics. They'll be intellectually humble. They'll be willing to admit there's a whole bunch of stuff they don't know. A lot of people, a lot of feelers, if you ask them their opinion about something they haven't ever thought about, they will, on the spot, come up with an opinion. How come? Because they think it makes them look smart if they have an opinion about just about everything, okay? A thinker, you ask, they'll say, gee, I haven't given it much thought, because that's the sensible thing to do. You're not out to impress people. What are you out to do? Optimize your mind, okay? And if other people are unimpressed, that's not your goal. You're willing, if you're a thinker, that's a thinker with a capital T, you're willing to stress test your beliefs. You're willing to take beliefs that you really feel confident are correct about a variety of issues and find a thoughtful person on the other side and hear them out. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, the people on the other side are all idiots. Yeah, most of them are. But I bet you if you look hard enough, you'll find some people who actually have given a lot of thought and have drawn the opposite conclusion. Here's an interesting thing about thinkers. They can disagree and often do disagree. Think of science. At any given moment, there's a bunch of different scientific debates going on about some issue. There's disagreement. And scientists, when they're doing science, come very close to being thinkers, open-minded critical thinkers, and yet they reach different conclusions. That's okay, because we live in a very complicated world, okay? Now, let me tell you something else about scientists. If you talk to them about scientists, they will engage in evidence-based reasoning. But you get that same scientist, and you get them talking about politics, they flip into feeler mode, right? It's no longer, well, what does the evidence say? And have I looked into this? It's like, well, here's what I feel about that, right? They make me very angry. Whereas if you're talking about science, they aren't going to say, well, the people who hold the opposite theory, they make me very angry. How come? Because they can give you the reason why they think that they do. They can give you the evidence. They can give you the inference. A feeler can't do that. How come? Because it came from his heart and gut, and heart and gut are incapable of reasoning. What are they capable of? Getting upset and angry. So that's how a feeler reacts when you challenge one of their beliefs. So, encouraging you to think better, your brain, the prefrontal cortex, is wired with a bunch of mistakes, and it's a process of evolution. So you may have these cognitive biases. One of them is confirmation bias. And you should pay attention to the way you form beliefs. Do you keep going to sources of information that tell you what you want to hear, that agree with you? That's a very bad habit, but a very tempting habit. Because what's going to happen is you're just going to get increasingly confident of that line of thought because you keep hearing it over and over. You see it when the enemy do it, right? Oh, they're always going to Fox News or MSNBC, whatever you regard as the enemy. I get nervous when I go to a news source that tells me what I want to hear. I think that's not a healthy thing for my mind if I'm out to optimize my beliefs. So what should you do? You should try to seek out sources that are going to tell you things in a rational, evidence-based way, things that you don't want to hear, things that make you slightly uncomfortable when you hear them. 'Cause what if that's the truth? If your goal is to optimize your mind, then you go with that. If your goal is to feel good, you got a completely different, much easier game to play, but you're going to become ungrounded from reality. So some other things. So getting into squabbles on social media, the back and forth of comments, an utter waste of time. You got better things to do with your brain than that. I mean, one of them is go find thinkers on the other side of the debate, because you're not going to win these online debates. In fact, by attempting to do it, you're just at best wasting your time, but you could make the situation even worse because there's this thing called the backfire effect. And the fact that you're arguing against them makes them dig in their heels. They aren't going to say, I was wrong, he was right. They're going to dig in their heels. If you have to deal with a feeler, I don't have extensive experience in that. I used to in the classroom. For the last 5 years, I've been a recovering academic. And just no exposure. But what works with them? A straightforward argument doesn't work because they aren't going to reason. But you can use Socratic method. You can ask them questions about their beliefs. Oh, well, that's an interesting thing. So how did you come to think that? And so on. And sometimes they'll just say, well, that's what the person I've given my thinking power to thinks, and so I go along with that. Now, along with the book, I told you I have a book coming out in January, and if you look on Amazon, they already have it for sale. But the other project is I started a Substack titled More Better Thinking. The title is How to Think More and Better, and More Better Thinking is the handle, I guess is what they call it. Started it in July, mid-July, 2.5 months back, and just today at noon, I got my 50,000th subscriber, okay? And there would be that many more followers as well. So there's a slight difference there, but that's 100,000. What does that show? That shows there's this market out there for people who want to think more and better, who want to kind of get into this whole thinker thing. And according to Substack, they are located in 200 different countries, so it's a global demand. But let me pause you there, because I didn't know there were 200 companies. So I checked AI, and AI said, well, there's only 195 countries. So one of two things is the case. Either AI is mistaken, which is very unlikely, or it's gone extraterrestrial, the demand to think more and better. So on Substack, I do my best to play the role of coach and model. We get into political sorts of things, but I do it in an apolitical way. For instance, after Trump's Tylenol advice, I put in a thing, and it was just simply, if you're a thinker, how do you make medical decisions? You know, and it used to be, well, you just do what the FDA says. Well, those days are gone. Listen to the WHO or something else. So I see my that clock is singularly effective, all right? So my effort to get to so I'm trying to get to the root of the free speech problem, tying it back in with the theme of this. A thinker is not merely tolerant of other people who disagree, but they seek them out in the possibility that they might have the truth. So two thinkers can disagree, and if they find out they do, what do? They probe each other's beliefs. Oh, how did you come to believe that? And a lot of times the two of them will come away with changed minds, okay? In closing, what the world needs now is more thinkers, and I'm engaged in a campaign to create them one person at a time, and I hope you will join the campaign. Thank you very much.